Hey there, it's Todd Turbo Watson coming to you live from Austin, Texas, the day after South by Southwest Interactive. I presented yesterday the topic of smarter social media, and I know a number of you out there weren't able to attend the event in person, so I thought I'd give you a quick summary and synopsis of my presentation. I'm going to try to do it in 10 minutes or less, because that's all I think YouTube will allow me, but first of all, thank all of you who did show up live and in person. As you'll see, the slides are in this posting for those of you who requested those. I'd mentioned at the top of the event that I had spoken at South by Southwest last in 2000, remembering there was no such thing as Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or any of those other things. And if you want to follow along on the slides, you'll see them on slide number 2. And in fact, the famous Barron's article hadn't even yet come out talking about all the .coms running out of money. But there was this one book that was out there, the Clue Train Manifesto, that had just come out about the changing consumer perspective being empowered by the network effect that the internet presented. And in fact, I suggested that that book really started to lay out the articles of impeachment of the traditional marketing 1.0 communications paradigm, because it announced that the market was a conversation. But in fact, very few listened. I joked that I flew back to New York City and ran around the halls of our IBM office and said, the world's about to change. And of course, nobody listened. But here we are 10 years later, and the world has changed pretty dramatically. And it wasn't without some irony that the inefficiencies of this over-build-out and over-capitalization of the internet economy were what helped pave the way to this democratization of media that we now call social media and formerly Web 2.0. It was those economic fundamentals that drove a lot of that transformation and the opportunity for that change, because the cost of everything dropped dramatically during the late 90s and early aughts, including processor and storage and bandwidth and even the production tools, the capabilities to do things like this podcast or video casts and other capabilities. And we saw in the 2000-2001 recession that there was an explosion of creativity that came out of that downturn, and that is really what laid the foundation for a lot of the socio-cultural, political, and other economic changes that led to what we call social media today. And if you move on to slide 4, some examples of some of those. I had started business school back in the fall of 2001 when I first moved back to Texas. The Enron story had just broke. Ironically, they had been number 6 on the Fortune 500 list that year, right above IBM. And then look at the disruption that downfall of that company and the accounting scandals that brought into the marketplace. We also saw several years later Howard Dean and his campaign run by Joe Trippi, and using the grassroots democratic media via the internet for fundraising as well as communications. We saw Dan Rather being brought down by bloggers in the 2004 campaign, a crowdsourcing action, if you will. And then, of course, more recently, we've seen a lot of financial shenanigans that led to us hearing about folks like Bernie Madoff. I think that all of this is to say that the values of the corporation really need to be in line with the behavior in the marketplace. And in fact, one of the things that we've done at IBM is we've not just used the social media for external communications, we've used it internally to actually help redefine our corporate values, as well as start to ascertain what are some of the business opportunities that we see for us in the near future. And in fact, back in the year 2003, we did some work to help redefine our corporate values as a company. If you move on to the 6th slide, you'll see some of the footprint there, the massive amount of knowledge sharing that's going on internally, which we believe in a company like IBM and many other large corporations is just as important what you're saying and how you're communicating internally as it is externally, because you need to make sure that the left hand knows what the right is doing. And we, in fact, use our own technology, Lotus Connections, as well as other associated technologies to help us do that. But getting back to the jam, and if you go on to slide 7, we started this experience with the redefinition internally of our corporate values. Later, several years later, we brought 150,000 constituents, both internal and external, into a virtual environment for 3 days, 72 hours, that generated some 46,000 new ideas. And that actually led to 10 new businesses. And you see many of those on this page, things like intelligent utilities, the 3D internet, Digital Me, some of the big green innovations, etc. And in fact, the corporation then allocated $100 million, $10 million for each of these emerging business opportunities to give us the ability to actually self-initiate some of these lines of business. Well, I think you can see where this is going. Now, if you look at the Smarter Planet initiative that we're communicating heavily both in the paid and the earned media around a smarter planet, each of those initiatives around smarter energy, water, healthcare, and traffic stem directly from those crowdsourced initiatives inside the corporation and in partnership with our constituencies. As we move forward, our Chief Marketing Officer, John Awada, has very articulately laid out the opportunity for the IBM business and other businesses to rethink how they're approaching both social media but the broader disciplines around marketing and communications by really helping build a new management discipline that combines brand, culture, and those expert ecosystems of those people who have the eminence, that achieve that eminence and become the kind of individuals the marketplace wants to engage with. It also affords us an opportunity to create new constituencies where we reach out and participate in those conversations that maybe we're not participating in, and that's an ongoing organic evolution in the marketplace. So to that end, on page 10, you see IBM and our social media footprint being both one that is focused, again, on the intranet and gathering those profiles, gathering that knowledge base internally, and manifesting that in external profiles so that our customers, our prospective clients, and others can find those experts inside IBM. Of course, there's also benefit to IBM and other companies by taking this approach because we're able to move more fleet of foot in the marketplace. We know better where our customers are going because we're communicating with them on an ongoing basis, and we're able to facilitate that global collaboration that's necessary in a multinational like IBM. So if you move on to slide 11, some of the takeaways that I'd really like to leave you with as you think about getting more sociable in your own company is, if you work, especially in a large organization, help educate your leaders about the opportunities of social media, help them get some hands-on experience if they don't have it. You'll find that a little bit of that kind of knowledge and training can go a long way. Also, you need to ensure that your social media strategy is in keeping with your company culture, your company's values, and business objectives. Social media socks that don't match, as I joked yesterday, are blatantly obvious, and you need to make sure that those values are in line with the activities you're engendering in the marketplace. Also, ensure social media doesn't just become that one person's job, that 20-something who's on Facebook, but rather everybody's job, because consumers want to communicate with your experts who are knowledgeable on a subject, not just the marketing folks. And then finally, when determining those key metrics, make sure you're not trying to measure everything, but those results that are going to be most meaningful to you and your leadership and your business. So that's the net of the presentation. Feel free to ping me with any questions or comments about that, and you'll see on the last couple of slides information on how you can learn more about our Smarter Planet and also how you can follow us on Twitter. Thanks again for your attention, and thanks again for those of you who showed up, and those of you who didn't, let me hear from you via this blog. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.